people I know for a while, eventually they'll go, well, gee, I don't understand how you've been so successful because you're just not the sharpest tool in the shed. And
that's nice. Friends are the people who tell you when you're
yeah,
who you really are.
yeah,
Welcome back to SmarterUmedia, where straight talk meets smart minds. We are in the middle of Texas Tech Month, where we're taking some of the great innovators from that community, broad as it is, and getting a chance to talk to them. Well, if you haven't subscribed yet, now is your chance. That's your free way to help support what we do here. And today we have truly one of the great technology innovators of banking. And I would say in this generation, but since this generation is when technology has done its thing, I'm just going to say ever. Hank Seale, welcome to SmarterUmedia.
Thank you very much, Steve.
It's just great to have you. And, normally I give a longer sort of introduction, but your story is so fun. I don't want to spoil any of it. So that's me being, me. I'm going to get us straight to the chicken timer. You have come with something that's going to make me a little bit smarter today. So, Hank Seale, make me a little bit smarter.
I think I could give you the tools to supercharge any skill set you have and be a better human being, be more successful, all those things we're trying to be. I think I could do that in this way. So I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but grew up on a ranch and was able to start a bunch of technology companies that did really well. And I found the way to do that is through servant leadership. And I think the secret is, how do you obtain that state of mind and that sense of purpose? And I've read almost maybe every self-improvement book known to mankind. And the self-improvement book that I found that is the best is the Bible. My job is typically, even though I'm not the smartest person in our company, but I'm usually the CEO in the company, my job is to remove barriers and to help the subject matter experts get what they need to be successful. And that's where that servant leadership comes in. I've created the environment for them to be successful and so on. Also learn all the tools you're going to need to be happy with what you have the ability to be the kind of leader that other people want to follow, and you can create almost anything you can imagine. And that would be my 2-minute version of that. Don't disregard the Bible because of what you've heard. As my father used to say, thinking and knowing are two different things. And now I know. So that's how I've been able to do a lot of the things I've been able to do. And I would tell people, if I could get their attention long enough, don't discount that.
Well, I can't imagine that one of the great cornerstones of one of the great societies and time and space in the human experience is not a bad place to start. I think we're starting deep, and we're just going to get even deeper.
Probably not, buddy.
Well, look out,
as
Hank.
deep as I go.
Look out. I don't have any problem thinking we're getting there. You've been a part of, various points in life that are really high and really low. And I think that's something that is a universal experience for us all. And it's hard to understand and navigate that stuff. So you've done it. Let's start all the way back on the ranch. You, spent 10 to 12-hour days on the ranch. Describe what you did and why you were on a ranch.
So my family started that ranch in the 1820s, even prior to the Spanish land grants. I was the oldest male in probably, I don't know how many generations, 5, 6, 7 generations. So that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to take over that ranch. I went to Texas Tech. Even though the ranch was right in the backyard of A&M, I was sent to Texas Tech because because I'd grown up on that ranch, not done anything much other than that. I was pretty
Hmm.
much a social illiterate, and I got sent to Tech to kind of half and half, go get an education in agriculture and then learn how to talk to people and be social. And so I was asked to join a fraternity, those kind of things, and was told just don't fail out, which I excelled at wonderfully, just not failing out.
Just
Um,
not failing out.
just,
I mean, you
just,
just got to get enough to
yeah,
get you there, and
yeah,
you got enough to get you there.
yeah. I,
That's great.
I cut down a few trees with the probationary notices that I got from the university.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so went to Texas Tech, and then after Tech, the last thing I was supposed to do was work at a bank to learn how to talk to bankers because we raised between 10 and 15,000 head of cattle a year,
Hmm.
and very capital intensive operation. And my father thought very much believed that a relationship with your banker was a key thing, and that's something I grew up with and was consistent through my whole career, was the importance of community banks for smaller, all the way up to as big as you want to get, businesses. And so with that, I went to work at Bank of the Hills in Austin. It was the the Lyndon Johnson family bank. Uh, I went in a different way than most. Most people, when they go into banking, they either kind of declare early on they're going to go lending or operations. And I
Yep.
went in and just said, I just want to learn about banking,
Yep.
all aspects. It doesn't matter. Use me however you want to use me. And they took full advantage of that utility player. Because I was willing to switch departments, I got moved around to every single department. I became kind of a problem solver for
That's
them,
great.
um, and would do all the really crappy projects that nobody else wanted to do.
Sure.
Um, I just, whatever they asked me to do, I said yes to and did it as enthusiastically and to the best of my ability. And, and that ended up working out really well because I started the bank in 1985. In 1986, my family had to declare bankruptcy due to the
Oh.
S&L crisis.
Yep.
They ended up losing everything over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
They were living in a borrowed house, and I
Yeah.
was making, I think, probably about $30,000 a year, $36,000 a year, and I was a breadwinner for the family. Uh, Helped two sisters go through college. It was an awakening.
Yeah.
During that process, the Johnson family during the S&L crisis was willing to grow when most other banks were contracting. Uh, Computers were just coming into the banking industry at that time, the PC being used for businesses. Um, the only thing that was really there before was mainframe computers. So they decided that they wanted to grow the bank using computers. And that's about as much, as anybody had thought about it. Uh, but nobody in the bank wanted, back then, buying a computer was a little like buying an appliance. It was considered very unsexy, tedious, not fun. So I got that project. And the beauty of it was that it turns out to be, in hindsight, technology coming into banking. Uh, I have to go research all the available technology. How does it work together? Who are the vendors? What are
Right.
kind of the primary systems, the ancillary systems? And so I get this master's degree in technology, banking technology, at the dawn of technology and banking, and it
Pretty
just,
good timing, right? I
yeah,
mean, being early in technology, being early in anything has a huge impact on
yeah.
what you can do in it, right?
Yes, and was lucky enough that the things that we did at the bank allowed it to grow 300% in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, that attracted a lot of negative attention from the regulators who thought
Hmm.
that they should be like every other bank and be scaling back instead of scaling up. And then I can't remember if it right around the beginning of 1990, that the Johnson family opted for selling their bank to uh, selling their banking. They they didn't. I don't know if they technically got shut down or not, but what was happening is the Johnsons basically traded all the real estate that
Right.
they had foreclosed on for the equity in the bank. They ended up doing very well out of all that. And but I was out of a job and
Yeah, well, I'm
decided,
I'm gonna just interrupt because I don't want to get through your whole life story in the first 10
okay,
minutes or we're
yeah,
done. So let's circle back. In the 1820s, your family is forming a ranch that lasts for a tremendous amount of time. And you talk about it being before the Spanish land grants. Basically, the King of Spain started giving large swaths of land. How does that happen when you already have a ranch? Are you now in one of those large swaths of land, or how does that even work out?
you're, well, I wasn't there, but my understanding is that
You
if
weren't
you were
there.
there and
Thanks.
able
Thank you
to,
for letting me know
yeah,
that you weren't there in
if
1820.
you were
Hey, that's
there and
that's
able
awesome.
to show uh, the ability to make something productive out of it, and were friendly to the Spanish. They were trying to just claim it,
Yeah.
and so anybody that would occupy that and be a friendly and be productive, then my understanding is that's how you got it. And
I see.
there were uh, I don't know exactly how our family ended up with, because my understanding is that they were fairly small land grants
Hmm.
in as a general rule, but I think that kind of at the beginning of my knowledge of family history, it had started with like 40,000 acres and had been, as different generations came along and got split up, we ended up with two ranches that were about one in Abilene, and which wasn't part of the Spanish land grant, but 7,500 acres in Bryan and about 7,500 acres in Abilene.
Okay.
Um,
So a good, I mean, 10 to 15,000 cattle a year is something that it fits into the category of what our brain does with math. If I tell you to picture a million of something, we have no capability of doing that. I think I'm in the same place with 10 to 15,000 cattle. If you told me to try to picture what that is in my head, I would go, I don't know. But that's a huge number of cattle.
my father was very early because we were down around A&M probably, but I think he was just a leader in the way he did things. He was an early adopter of what's known as rotational grazing.
Okay.
So imagine a pie chart with 12 or so different slices. You move those cattle around the ranch, and the grass never gets down eaten very much. You're just holding them there the ideal amount of time, so you're getting the maximum production per acre. And then he was also very good at managing the death percentage of death. So if you can manage those two things
Mm.
very effectively, you end up with very successful ranching operation, which he had.
Essentially, you don't want the cattle to eat the grass so that the grass can't grow again. So you keep circulating them. That allows you to have a ranch that sustains. That's a
Right.
big, great
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. And he had just built that place up to be a machine. He was in the top one half of 1% of beef production per acre in the U.S. at that time.
Wow.
And then later on, oil is discovered there, so it's even better. But all that could not protect him from the regulations, the regulatory environment in the banking industry in the 80s.
Of course, living through a really hard time for your family, that's hard to imagine. I think probably in our lives all the time, we feel like it's pretty good today and sometimes somehow think it's always been this way, this good, and it never sustains. Nothing lasts forever, right?
It is interesting, having now been around for, I don't know, 62, 63 years. My wife's not here to tell me um, how cyclical things are.
Yeah.
It is pretty amazing. But this AI, this this new generation of technology that's coming along feels either on steroids or completely different. I cannot believe uh, what's happening and how fast everything moves.
You're right. And it is, you're in the middle of that because you've gone through essentially what were the big technologies that our generation appreciate, things like the telephone. So when you started
Mm-hmm.
changing so that people can do telephonic banking because they never had that before. You literally helped create that space and
Yeah.
then did the same thing in the internet side of things. Now we're getting to AI. Let's use that as a tease because that's where we're going to head. But tell me how banking was before the technology of doing telephonic banking changed what I thought was normal so that now I just can't imagine it any other way.
So when I first joined Bank of the Hills, I was a loan payments clerk, and we had a computer system. It was EDS, um, but we didn't trust it. So
Hmm.
we also kept a ledger. So there was
Sure.
a actual
Bank ledger.
book that we would write all the transactions down in. So that's how far back this goes,
Yeah.
as we were still keeping ledger entries. Uh, then when the going through that process I described earlier, we're researching all the technologies out there and trying to figure out what the best group, assortment was for the bank to grow. The only thing that I recommended that the bank buy that they wouldn't buy was voice response, is what it's called, because they didn't want their customers talking to a computer. They didn't want their customers to have to talk to a computer. We
Yeah.
provide personal service. We're not never going to stoop to that level to
Yeah.
have our customers have to talk to a computer. And even though I argued, well, what are they going to do for their balance? Everybody closed at, I don't know, it was 3 o'clock or whatever it was back then. You know, they don't have anybody to talk to after three. So, why not give them the computer to find out their balance and find out if checks cleared and that kind of thing? Nope, we're not going to do that. We provide personal service. So when the bank goes out of business, I thought the thing I'm going to do is build a system like that. There was probably one or two companies that were already doing it, but everybody used it. It was just the very biggest banks that offered that service. It was a 1-800 number service,
Yep.
which back then, if you were dialing a 1-800 number, you were probably not talking to somebody in your town.
Right.
And it was is talking to somebody in South Carolina or Florida or somewhere like that was kind of a similar experience where a few years ago, if you were talking to your healthcare company or something and you got transferred to India, then you were just, shocked and amazed. I'm not talking to a local person, so,
Sure.
I just don't feel like they're taking good care of me. That was kind of the feeling back then. Even if you were just outside of the state, people felt like, they were getting handed off to somebody they didn't know. So my idea was use a local phone number and put zero in the menu. And up to that point,
Meaning I
that
can get
had
to an operator.
so
That's
you
what
can
putting
get
zero means, right? I
you
can
can
get to a
yeah
human person.
yeah I can
Yes.
get to you can get to a human person, and that made a huge difference to the acceptance of it in the smaller banks. Big banks worked there yet; they still didn't do that. But anyway, so that was a voice response company. It was very successful, and
And that was Regency, right? The name of the company was Regency.
yeah, Regency Voice Systems. And it sounded like you have a little bit of interest in the downside stuff. So it was my idea. I start, I had all the connections, all that kind of stuff. There was an older guy that I had bought technology from for the bank. He was about 15 years older than me. And I tell him what I'm going to do when the bank, because the bank's starting to wind down, you know, the people inside knew what was going to go on. So I'm talking to him about what I'm going to do after that. And I'm going to go start this company. I had this idea. One idea was for real estate, and one idea was for banking. I went with the banking one. So I'm going to go start this company and go do that. And he said, well, why don't we start this company together? Because I sell computer stuff to banks also. And you could sell your computer stuff and my computer stuff, and I could sell your computer stuff and my computer stuff. And we would just be in twice as many banks, and we could be twice as successful and all that. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a pretty smart idea. And he's older than me and all that. So we start, and we're talking about how to structure the company. And he said, well, we'll just do it 50-50. And I said, no, I've been in banking. I know that, 51%, somebody needs to be able to cast a deciding vote. Well, how are we going to decide who's going to own 51%? Well, we said at the end of the first year, whoever sold most gets 51%, and then the other one gets 49. It's not a big deal, but it's, okay. At the end of the first year, I had sold $360,000 worth of stuff, I think. And I had also sold $32,000 of his stuff, and he hadn't sold anything. And so,
Sounds like a great partnership.
So there were things he brought some value, but so I don't want to undersell that.
I get it.
But so he said, all right, well, you're obviously you get the 51%. I've done this before. I know the accountants and the lawyers and all that. So we'll go get the paperwork drawn up, and we're off to the races. And we go. Well, about 2 years in, I've never seen paperwork. And about every 6 months, I'm asking, where's the paperwork? Where's the paperwork? Where's the paperwork? And I start to get pretty suspicious and then down kind of a little nasty. And he finally tells me, so me and my brother own 100% of the company. I own 95% of it. He owns 5% of it. You own nothing. And if you don't like it, then I'll just shut the company down, change the name of the company by one letter, move across the street, and you're out of luck. Or you can continue to make a whole lot of money and provide for your family. He knows, obviously, my family situation. And I ended up negotiating the ability to buy, I think, 10% of my own company. And obviously, we didn't get along very well after that. So I started, what am I going to do next? So just took in the period from starting to 4 years later, it really more like 2 or 3 years later, voice response had gone from balance in the last 5 checks to balance any amount of history you wanted, pay bills, ATM locations, rates, all that kind of stuff. This huge tree of information in my brain was, wouldn't it be easier if you could just see all that information on a screen? Then you wouldn't have to go hunt for it. And that's where internet banking comes from. I think we had, well, I'm not going to claim that we invented it, because there is another company that gets that title called S1, comes up later on. But so I had to work nights and weekends to build a company called QUp, Quotes and Updates. We shortened it to QUp, while also running Regency. And then because of the conflict between the two partners, we sold Regency after, I don't remember now, 3 years or 4 years. And by that time, QUp was already going, and we become the first profitable internet banking company and one of the originators of internet banking.
You learned how to work really hard. I feel like that's the first chapter, and that you did on the ranch over many, many years. And then with the help of your parents and their guidance, you broadened your world. I would say the second beautiful tip for all of us is go and explore things, and don't worry about exactly what the end is in that. You went to Texas Tech and you learned and you had an open mind to learn. So that's what I interpret as two. Number three was when you went into the banking world and they started just assigning you what you called the crappy jobs, the things that nobody else wanted to do. You said yes, and you said yes with enthusiasm. And when we do that, when we say yes, you went into spaces that nobody else wanted because they were new. New always brings incredible stuff if you learn about it. So you took us all the way there. And then the fourth thing that I feel like you've really brought into our discussion is a cautionary tale, which is pay attention to the details. And I think if you have a partner that is telling you for 2 years that, yeah, the paperwork's coming, that stuff matters no matter who you are. And the reason that we have contracts never for the good times, it's for the bad times. So to have people understand that that you would not have had maybe some of the great adventures later, but you also probably would have been in a different position if you'd been mindful of that so far. That's four. That's pretty good. Four already.
The that experience of going through with my partner, one thing that really hit home for me, and this is, I keep going back to that servant's heart, and that and the benefits of having a soul that's pointed in the right direction with the right attitude.
Yep.
I I never wanted to be the person that money was so after that experience, and he was so focused on not the pile of money he had in front of him,
Yeah.
but maybe the dime that you have in front of you across the table. He couldn't focus on how good he had it. All he could focus on is what he didn't have.
Yeah.
And from then on, I thought I'm never going to be that person that screws somebody over money. And
Yes.
it was just so the first company I started with, Q Up, all the employees had lots of equity. Everybody got treated like their family. That level of respect. The customers you treat them like you want to be treated, and all those basic kind of things are the things that build up a brand over time. But it really boils down to treating people the right way and all that. And it's just over 40 years or so, as I've tried to distill it, and I get asked all the time because, people I know for a while, eventually they'll go, well, gee, I don't understand how you've been so successful because you're just not the sharpest tool in the shed. And
that's nice. Friends are the people who tell you when you're
yeah,
who you really are.
yeah. And how do you do that? I mean, a funny story. One time, uh, my mother, a friend of mine, my wife, and maybe somebody else sitting in the room. We're just sitting in the room, just talking. And this friend of mine asked my mother, "Did you ever think he was going to be that successful?" And she kind of forgets where she is, who she's around, and she focuses on him. And you know what? I never knew he was going to get off the couch. It's amazing. I don't know how it happened.
Hank, that is a true inspiration. I mean, for all of us sitting on the couch today while we're watching an episode of SmarterUmedia, subscribe, please. All of us who are sitting watching that, that's an inspiration because, it is not what other people think of you. It is what you're willing to do in life to open up and find stuff. And you didn't give up. You didn't give up. You kept going.
It didn't even feel like it. I guess it never even occurred to me to give up. The thought never even crossed my mind.
Well, when you're sitting out in a field miles away from the ranch and something goes wrong, you've talked about how you better fix it or you're going to have to walk back. You
Yep.
figure out how to do it and you don't think about giving up because giving up's harder than not giving up.
That's very true. Yeah, we would drive, there was different seasons for different things, but if you're driving tractors, you would be hours away from anybody. Like you could be 30 minutes to an hour away from somebody driving. You could be,
Mm.
hours. If you're having to walk, it's a long damn way. So
Yeah.
you're pretty adaptable. One thing that my dad always said, a lot of things he told me. One thing that stuck with me was think ahead. Um, that's something I
That's
think
good.
he taught me how to do
Yeah.
through things like going to a remote pasture in a tractor, and you better damn well take everything you need because there's no going back. Um, and so I've been very blessed in that. Uh, for example, when Q2 started, we laid out a 20-year plan that said we would be to $5 billion in market cap in 20 years and have done this basket of things. And we started in, call it June, July, August of 2004. And I was able to retire from there in June of 24, having accomplished those tasks. And the last one was accomplished, that month. And we were sitting at about $5.5 billion in market cap. So,
I would say that's pretty rare, don't you think? I mean,
yeah.
it is rare. So for you to set up goals, I'm sure you change them, right? I mean, when you're looking at what you do every quarter, particularly in a public context, things have to change as you adapt along the way. But to meet those sorts of goals, it's very rarefied air.
You know, the that thinking ahead is understanding where you want to get to
Yeah.
where define the top of the mountain, which mountaintop exactly,
Yep.
and then being flexible enough to find the path to it. The the path that you think you're going to take probably isn't the path that you're going to end up taking.
Exactly. Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you're defining that mountaintop, and in Q2's case, it was make it where people don't have to go to a branch anymore,
Yes.
open up their data because they didn't have ready access to it, and then uh, building a marketplace so that they could generate revenue from new sources that they'd never done before. And we did all that. And like I said, in June of 24, there were banks that were generating 400% of what they were paying Q2, which is a big expense item for banks. And so we were able to declare victory, and now moving on to HAPEX is the other half of that vision. And so that's why we're doing it. We want to transform banking and keep community banks around so that we can democratize capital to uh, everybody, and you don't end up with one or two choices from just a couple of banks on the east and west coast. That's kind of the driving passion behind everything, is to help
Amen.
people.
We saw what happened with the with railroads, right? I mean, we've gone through what happens when there's just too much power concentrated in a few entities in markets. It's not a market anymore. So one of the things you talk about is 30,000 communities and how that diversity makes us what we are in this country. And I would dare to say all around the world, because financial markets undergird everything all over the
Yes,
world.
yes,
So let's get a little bit into what that means and how you unpack it, because I think it's powerful. I think it's biological. I mean, the reason that species continue to exist is because they diversify across so many things like humans have. Talk to me about the 30,000 communities you see in the US and how important it is to keep their financial center healthy.
yeah. So there are roughly, I haven't counted lately, 30,000 communities across the U.S. Uh, used to be most of those communities had just a small community financial institution that
Mm-hmm.
served that community in as a result of the 80s, you start getting, in the S&L crisis I was talking about, you start getting increasing interstate branching.
Right.
And you get a regulatory attitude in banking where bigger is better, and this
Yep.
attitude of too big to fail,
Yep.
which it comes to a head in 2008 with the financial crisis. And
Right.
not to go down a huge rabbit hole here, but the financial crisis of 2008 was uh, not community bank oriented. It was too big to fail oriented, where very few people were able to institute policies that impacted a tremendous number of loans in the industry. And they were essentially selling what they knew to be very risky paper, very risky loans. But
Yep.
because they were home loans, and traditionally home loans had been very safe, they were able to kind of package those up, and people didn't pay attention to it, blah, 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 blah. But
And if you want to understand it better, watch the movie The Big Short.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this idea is that we are with 30,000 communities, each wanting having their own individual personality needs, capital needs, and small community or regional banks that are servicing those needs. What you end up with is a tapestry of individual threads, 30,000 of these threads that are slightly different from each other and are very diversified risk wise, not all making the same decisions for the same reasons. You have a diversification of ideas, and they're all trying different products, and they're trying to service their market the best way they can. And some of those markets might be agriculture, some of them may be more commercial, some of them may
Right.
just be professional, suburban, rural, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very hard for a mega bank to be able to make policy and distribute capital. If I told you that your job next year is, I'm going to give you $1 trillion and you need to lend that out, make X return, how are you going to do that? You've only got
Yeah.
whatever 300 days that you can actually do it, probably less.
Yep.
The way that you're going to do that is, instead of making $10,000 loans or $100,000 loans or even $1 million loans, you've got to make $100
Yes.
million
Yes.
loans or bigger.
Yeah.
You've got to make great big loans to lend that money back out.
So you supersize everything, right? I mean, you have to supersize everything or it makes no sense on your balance sheet. Yeah.
It's very hard. It's much less efficient for them to manage a lot of smaller loans and smaller customers than it is larger loans.
Right.
On the other hand, if you have a small, and I keep saying small, I mean, some of these community banks are large community banks, but that's their business.
Right.
Their charter says probably something along the lines of, I'm in this county and I can service this county and the 4 counties that adjoin it for 80% of my business.
Right.
And so they're focused on that community and how to help grow business in that community, how to help build jobs in that community. That is their livelihood. And usually those people live in those communities. They've grown up there, and they're very pro that community. So they work really, really hard to make those guys do well. But they have certain inefficiencies. You get the economies of scale very much come into play for JP Morgan at $4 trillion in assets versus your local community bank heroes who may be at $100 million bank or a $500 million bank or a couple $1 billion bank. And the scale is just different. They can't buy computers or technologies. If I'm Bank of America,
Sure.
and I go to my technology vendor and I say, I want to do X, chances are I'm that vendor's largest customer, and
Right.
whatever you want, you get.
Yeah.
Take that same vendor that has smaller community bank customers, asking them for different things in Bank of America at the same time, who do you think gets service first? So
Hmm.
uh, what we that was part of Q2's thing, unlock the data so the banks have access and are able to do their own thing, and
Right.
we did that. But we very much everything that Q2's done, Hapax has done, and all my companies are about trying to help as many banks, and I'm not anti Bank of America, I'm not anti JP Morgan, I'm just pro as many banks and credit
Yeah.
unions uh, in existence as possible, even third parties, even fintech companies. I want every individual, when you go out to borrow money to start this podcast or to buy a house or buy a car or whatever, start a car wash.
Yep.
I want you to have 5, 6 different financial entities competing for
Yeah.
your business so you get the
Right.
absolute best deal that you can get. And you can't do that if there's only 2 banks in the world.
Yeah, you can. And it makes a huge difference for markets. And like I said, undergirding all of it are financial institutions. We may not think it has to be that way, but that's the way it is. I mean, that's what we exist, the world we exist in. So if you don't have diversity across communities, then you wind up too big to fail. And honestly, the market gets skewed. Like I said, my hypothetical would be you no longer have a market. It's not
Yeah.
nothing is a perfect market. There's no such thing as a true forever free market. Never has existed. But to have more and more competitors gives you a chance to have 5 or 6 good offers if I'm going to go and try and buy a car,
Yep.
which matters to all of us because that's what affects our lives, I think, every day.
100%. 100%. All this affordability is a big word right now,
Mm,
and competition
yeah,
creates affordability.
it does.
The fewer people you have competing for your business, the less affordable it's going to be.
There is a very interesting guy who was the minister of the treasurer in Greece. He is observing technology companies that have become so prevalent, things like Amazon, where it's hard to imagine that that's a true market because essentially it's a company that is public and trying to maximize its profits. And yet that's where you go to decide what to buy. That skews things in another way as well, but very much like what you're talking about. It's a different
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And, we have to also keep in mind that we're talking about the time frame that we're focused on right now. IBM used to be
Yeah,
thought of as the absolute dominant player.
it was.
Uh, and so, we may look back in 10 years because of some of these new technologies coming out. I mean, I think Google's had the absolute uh, fire scare out of it with AI.
Yeah.
Um, we just don't know what's going to happen. And those that are dominating players right now may not be dominating players in 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh, 100%. So let's, I got to take the technology path again. I don't know if you remember the old game we used to play Candyland, where you'd go and you'd wander around down the path. Well, we're on our way, and I think you've taken us to the telephonic world, which it's hard to imagine for people who are young that there was a time when I had to get out of my home and go to a bank if I wanted to do a transaction. But that was the entire world before you and others helped unlock a telephone that did not shut down at 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening so that I wouldn't even be able to get my balance of what I had in my bank account. That technology very quickly got adopted. And then you, along with others, helped bring in the internet, which was such a powerful tool because now there's a two-way communication. And all of a sudden, I'm able to not just do my banking there, it's almost the only way we bank now. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going into the bank and you're going to look for a teller or a banker to do a transaction, it is a rare transaction. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And the cost of those transactions have gone down by 90% because
Yes.
of that technology. So
Yes.
the cost to have an account uh, is for what you get is tremendously less expensive now than what it used to be.
And
Consequently, the
yeah,
rates that you get on your loans are better. Now, people may
yeah.
go, well, I remember a time when, okay, but
It is what it is, and it's
apples to apples, times to times,
yeah,
the
apples to apples, time to
things
time.
you're getting, you never had the opportunity to be able to transfer money while you were, sitting in Mexico from one account to another, pay your bills, or
It's
apply
wild.
for a loan or do any of the other stuff. All that costs money.
No, it's truly wild. And those transaction costs, we'll get to in actual jobs and employees, because that's an equation that's coming as we talk about AI. But on this Candyland route that we're taking, we're finding our way now down through the internet, which has transformed not just how we bank, but I don't think people who exist and just start their financial lives now really have the context of what was before. But this is where we are, and AI has found its way onto the scene. You are with HapAx really helping us figure out what that's going to be. As somebody who took us through telephonic, took us through the internet, what's this going to look like? What do you think's coming?
Woo! It's the biggest technology transformation that I've been around for.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
yeah, yes,
There's, there's a popular school of thought out there that says that everybody's going to be replaced by AI. I don't think that's the case. I think you're good, at least in the initial wave. If you're going to be replaced, you're going to not be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by somebody that knows how to use AI. Um, but we're on the Hapex is on the prefaces. I can't pronounce it.
precipice,
Prefaces
and none of us
uh,
can pronounce it.
of delivering technology to banks that is it can almost do anything, and
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
incredible. Um, and the ability for a bank to smartly make credit decisions, to
hmm,
be able to talk, or maybe a better word would be interface with many, many more potential customers,
yep,
and do a better job of matching up their services to what that customer needs and providing that customer with a deeper, more beneficial relationship with more knowledge. I think within 5 years, and this I'll get out on a limb here if I'm not careful about it. That,
go ahead. We
that
can predict. If
so
we're wrong, we say, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
so you're familiar with internet banking, and you go log
Yeah,
on, and you have your passwords and multi-factor authentication, that kind of stuff. I don't think it's that far down the road before a customer is able to build essentially from a menu of choices how they want to talk to not just their bank but any kind of service oriented organization, build their interface, what information they want, how often they want it, how they want it, what supplemental information they need, be able to use that service organization like a bank to help them run their own business. Uh, and so you're not going to have to log on to anything. Right? You'll be
with
talking or
yeah,
chatting with your financial institution,
yeah,
and be able to, or your own agent that you've built, and say, you know, uh, go verify that my paycheck got deposited. I'd like to pay enough bills that I still have, $500 to $1,000 left in my account. Make sure that this, that, and the other thing happens, and I'd like to apply for a mortgage loan. Do all that and get back with me.
and the next step, I mean, with AGI, right? It will be as good, probably better than I will be at deciding what it is that would make my goals actually be accomplished. If I want to save this amount, it can ask me that, and I can say I would like to save $1,000 a month, or $500 a month, or $200 a month, and it can help me get to that goal and tell me when it's not going to work, and honestly make me a better financial person.
Absolutely. You'll have your banking agent talking to your brokerage agent, talking to your insurance agent, talking to your bills agents, and they'll work out all that stuff and bring you
Yeah.
a solution.
And that, all of that time, we're getting that time back. What you're helping us do, or what AI is going to help us do at a whole different level, is we're getting part of our life back.
Yeah, no question. I can only with confidence see 2, 3 years out in the future. I mean, it's moved so fast anymore.
I know.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
the guy that pretty well predicted where we were going to be in 20 years. I couldn't predict for you more than 2 or 3 years out
Yeah.
on this stuff. But it is just what is coming in the next 2 to 3 years is mind blowing from my perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know that we will get this general AI in situations like banks. I don't know that we won't, but I can't see that happening right now. What HapEx has done is we've put caps on the intelligence level so that it will only follow the instructions that it's been given,
Sure. Oh
and
yeah. Safeguarding, huge.
and can't get outside of the fence, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And then quantum computing is a whole nother realm. When you put those two together, that's going to be fascinating.
I mean, quantum computing's, I'm not sure, but AI is already mind blowing. It's not like there needs to be another 40 times change to have life be different. I mean, I think it's already doing that all across everywhere.
Yeah, yep, it is. It's and quantum is coming, so it's not all that far out.
You started with service, and I want to get back to service because I think that is just a beautiful sort of paradigm that you pitched, I think, meaningfully. Not just it's better for the world, but it's really better for you. And as someone who's had that sort of meteorific uh, sort of success, you're somebody who still cares about caring for people and finding ways to apply that so that it changes markets. Tell me what that means for you. How do you translate that into a position now where you're in a period of life where there are just more things you can do?
What I've learned um, is that money is not the source of happiness. It
Yeah.
is the relationships you form. It is. I get more joy out of helping people than I do over having stuff. And in fact, kind of my driving force for being CEO of HapEx, I don't have to work, but I've got a list of people that I want to go, people and organizations that I want to go help. And so it's kind of like working for charity. I'm going to go do whatever I can do. And, the majority of that money will just go to those folks. And they're people
Yeah.
that, maybe a teacher somewhere that's about to retire that just is not going to be able to live very well off of their retirement, even though they've been a teacher for 25 years. Wouldn't it be nice to be able? What if you could change that person's life by giving them enough money where they could own their own house and actually not have to budget out every single cent and do without, entering the stage of their life where their healthcare costs are going to go up and things like that? To be able to do that for somebody is way more fulfilling than just looking at your account balance. Just
Yeah, I mean, it's yes. I'm laughing, but I'm only laughing because the way you've helped transform technology makes it so you don't even have something in your hand, right? I mean,
yeah.
this it is
Or
a piece of paper that comes with a number on it, and that is as far removed from our emotional state as I think you can get.
valid point. Other than that phone, you can take everything out of your hand except for that phone.
Everything except that phone. Well, I love that that's part of what you do. So I'm going to generalize that and go a little more macroscopic. So as we start to, look at technology having a bigger and bigger role, one of the discussions that we have is sort of what happens when robotics finds its place with AI and really start making it more and more, as you see companies today that just are already moving so that that fewer workers are there. And I do believe AI is transformative in a different way, but perhaps that's a great opportunity. In other words, it doesn't have to, it just means that socially we need to find ways to adapt. As you've looked at all these different ecospheres as technology progresses, any thoughts on what may work, what may not work for us to make it a kinder, gentler, as George H.W. Bush would say, universe to live in?
Uh, I do think robotics is going to be a huge, huge, huge thing. Um, Obviously, having the ability to have smart enough AI on board, whatever implement we're talking about, robotic implement we're talking about, to be able to autonomously make decisions and correct decisions, whatever they may be, whether that is in a battle in some war thousands of miles away, or
Right.
whether it's mowing your yard or doing dishes or whatever it is, the ability, and you touched on this earlier, the ability to free up people from the kind of the mundane tasks they're
Yeah.
used to spending their time on is going to be another huge, change. It's probably comparable to the telephone or the automobile or the computer.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, at some point you wonder, what are we going to do with all of that free time? And are we going to use it in a productive way or a non productive way? Because I think the way we as human beings are wired is we need to be, we need to feel like we're being productive,
Yes.
whatever that means
Yes.
for you. And if we eliminate too much of that, what do we do?
Well, I had a soulful conversation with my then 21-year-old as he was hearing all of the discussion. He created a business when he was 15 that is a tech business that's done very well. So he is not worried about himself. He worries about the other people around him. So as he's in college and he's seeing his contemporaries and the discussion comes of, well, what job are you going to do? He was beginning to be down. So we talked about it, and I just asked him to do one simple thing. I said, think of the list of big problems we as humans still need to solve. Just sit down, write a list, make 10. You don't even need to get beyond 10. If we have more time to address those, that could be a great thing if we do it right. And yeah,
Good
you're right.
point.
We're going to do it
Yeah,
right and we're going to do it wrong. We're going to do
that
both, right?
there's going to be some percentage of the population that will take that and do that. I
Yeah.
do worry about, you know if you're not naturally inclined that way, or you don't feel like you you have to do that. What percentage of the population is actually going to do that, or not? And the or nots are the ones I'm afraid of.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the people who are sitting watching Smarter You Media today, I will tell you those are almost certainly self-selected to be some of the people
Exactly.
who are going to help us. go. And that's why we're so fortunate.
Preaching to the choir here. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's
exactly.
good because we got to sing the right hymn. And
Yeah,
I'm good with that. I I really appreciate that you have taken the time to be with us today, and I always try to end with suggesting if you have some sort of way for me to curate information better, some source that you know of and have found that I may not know. It could be in finance, could be somewhere else. What resource would you give me as a way for me to better get to better information?
Um, well, my number one, as I told you, the most basic is the Bible, but uh, there there are podcasts that I listen to out there that are probably out of norm, and one of them is called Bankless. Uh,
Hmm.
Talk a lot about crypto and the impact of crypto. That's another huge opportunity we have out there. Uh, so I listen to whenever I have free time, I'm listening to any kind of podcast I can get that I can learn something from. And lately, with the subject of crypto being so hot, that's been a good one.
Bankless, by the way, is a great name for a podcast. Thank you, Hank Seale, for coming and being a part of Smarter You today.
It was very nice of you to invite me. Thank you, Steve.
Everybody, make sure today, every chance you get, to be open and to do your best to be curious, because that makes a better life. If you haven't subscribed, now's your chance. And thank you again, Hank, for joining us today.
Thanks, Steve.